I'm Monica Werner, and I'm one of the original Unstuck authors. I am also an educator, an administrator, and currently I'm working as, I'm also a licensed professional counselor. So I use executive function and Unstuck in every part of my life. Lynn?
My name is Lynn Cannon, and I'm also one of the original authors of Unstuck and On Target. I am the social learning coordinator for the Maddox School and the Ivy Mount School in Rockville, Maryland, and also the author of the Ivy Skip, which is a social learning assessment and curricular tool as well. And just like Monica, I use executive function and Unstuck and On Target throughout all of my days. So with that, we can jump right into our presentation. So our goal here tonight is that you will leave here feeling more confident as an interventionist. And we thought what better way to do that than to ask you specifically, what is going well for you with your Unstuck intervention? What things are challenging? What hurdles have you been up against? I know there are many in this, this new education environment we are in this year. So if you would be willing, we'd love to know how Unstuck's going. Where are you in the curriculum, if you've been able to start? And then are there any challenges or problems that you wanted us to problem solve here tonight?
So I'm going to set the baseline really low. Have both of you started?
Yeah, hi there. This is Rachel. Actually, I guess my name's probably down there. Duh. Sorry, I forgot to bring my laptop home, so I'm on my phone. I have started, and I think I've probably done 2 or 3 sessions, perhaps. Things are, as I'm sure you all know, like really super crazy. So what I have started so far, I'm loving, and it's easy to follow along with the book. But I would absolutely love to figure out, so we have spring break starting tomorrow at the end of the day. So I'm hoping I can maybe do some of it over spring break and maybe get rolling after we get back.
Perfect. And how many students do you have in your group?
So as of now, I'm planning for, I think, 4 4th graders. And my co-counselor in my school is also planning to do this, but she was debating doing it with like a whole class. And I honestly do think I could probably do this with, for sure, our 2 advanced academic classes, but I'm just not sure if that's too big of an undertaking.
We can talk through that and the different ways that you might want to modify it to approach it, well, you know, with a whole class versus a small group, but both are good options.
Yeah.
Great. And how about you, Jennifer?
I wrote in the chat, I literally started yesterday. So
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's always like, you're always nervous when you start something new, even though the training was so great and all of that. I was like, oh no, because I told the teacher it would only be like half an hour. So what we're doing is there are 3 counselors in my school. We're all very part-time, but our plan is we are doing full classrooms, Rachel. So we did 5th grade. We decided to do the 2 5th grade classrooms because at our school, it's a K-8 school, and they actually moved to a different building. It's just across the parking lot for next year. So we thought, well, what can we, you know, maybe we can give them some skills moving forward. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we're also going to do a few lessons with one of the 4th grade classes. The hope is next year we'll be able to do all of them. I think that's what the hardest part is. We're really looking through trying to decide, well, which things to cover. So I think we did lesson 1, unit 1. I think we're going to do the first few from lesson 1, from unit 1. And then we're just going to pick, I think, at flexibility and try to do all the things within flexibility. So.
So Jen, we have some answers for you.
Yes,
okay,
so
good.
You guys
good.
have come to the right session. We've got,
awesome.
yes, that exact question answered.
Okay.
And Rachel, just in response, since this is a little more informal, I've been putting together what I call Unstuck in a Box, and I put the Dropbox link in the chat.
Uh-huh.
I don't have the final version run through the authors and stuff, so you could be the guinea pigs. But if you're just starting it, I think the advantage of it could be is that it's like how to prep all the materials at one time. And so that when you're in the middle of your day, you don't have to, it's just literally filed away in the box. And then Jen, I think for your purposes, whatever lesson you choose to do, you can just grab your materials out for that day. And then you have it for next year. Once you've done it, I encourage you to laminate certain things so that they're kind of permanent, documents, or certainly stick them in a sleeve. And that way it'll be easier for you to keep moving, especially if you have a half hour and you're very part-time.
So I just clicked on that Dropbox and I was able to see it. Does it automatically save that, or should I write down, this is a very weird looking link, but should I write this down? How do I make sure that I save that?
I can email it to you, Jen, and I'll email
thank you
it as well, Rachel. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks.
Well, and then I'll go ahead and piggyback off what Monica said in terms of, collection of materials and being able to use them from year to year. The way that we have designed these lessons, where we start with the lightning round and move into the activities, there's easy applicability from a small group to a large group setting. Certainly, your students best, and you'll know if there are slight modifications that you'll want to make, or you want to truncate an activity based on the number of kids you have. But there really is that easy shift. And, I'm supervising groups doing it in both forms this year. And I think there's also, as you become more familiar with the activities, there are ones that you'll want to have kids break up into small groups. There are others that, become really rich dialogue and conversations because you do benefit from having more kids in a class to contribute. So I think you should feel very free and flexible to do it in any one of those grouping formats.
Yeah, well, and I'm also trying to think in terms of what you guys need for data collection, trying to find like just the right balance. But I think it almost might be easier for me to get time to go into the whole group, just because anyone who has ever worked with advanced students knows that they are like most of the time pretty crazy, awesome, smart. But it's the executive functioning that really can throw them. Like some kids, they can get the first steps, but then they kind of lose their way, or, there's just so much other stuff going on that sometimes literally they're stuck. Like
absolutely. I think you bring up, sorry, I was going to say, I think you bring up such a great point. Our research has been done with students with ASD and ADHD. But what we know is that these skills are applicable and important for any student. And executive functions are, constantly developing, and that these can be practiced and are beneficial for any students. And then as we move forward in the presentation, you'll see that a lot of our strategies to get the biggest bang for your buck is when they're actually applied across an entire classroom. And that's certainly easier if the presentation is coming, to an entire class. With that, Gary, do you mind advancing? Oh, there you did. Thank you. Actually, one back. Yes. So this is our little plug to relieve any anxiety that you may be having about whether or not this is going to benefit or work for your students, and whatever form and fashion you can share the Unstuck content, it's going to be beneficial to your students. So we have done lots and lots of research to come up with these elements here. And the success of Unstuck and on Target does not relate to the number of lessons that you have completed, which is an interesting outcome that we saw, but really there are some other factors that contribute to its success. It is not solely reliant on the number of lessons completed. It's also not reliant on the fidelity of implementation. So we say that, and we will let you know that there are flexible ways that you can adjust the curriculum to meet the needs of your class or your time frame. But we have also found from many years of doing this research and many, many teachers implementing it that Fidelity is actually pretty easy with the way that we have created the curriculum. And 90% of school staff, even without having to put in a lot of effort, have achieved that high fidelity. But even without that, gains are still made. The other thing that it's not reliant on is educator training. Any school professional can present and have success teaching this curriculum, and the outcomes will still be positive for our students. So these are our quick plugs, and that our way of saying, take a deep breath, it's going to work, it's going to benefit, and it's well worth your time and investment. All right, so with that being said, what is the absolute least we can do? That we are up against so much as educators on any given year. This year, more than any other, there are just extra pressures for both the students and for the teachers and therapists. And so we know that that's true, and we want to make sure that we offer you some strategies to get the most out of Unstuck, doing the least possible. So the first thing is to teach the most important lesson. So Jennifer, hopefully this slide will speak to you here. So our next slide here, Gary. All right, so what we've done is we've taken the collection of lessons and we've gone through, and we've done this in 2 tiers. The first tier is to go through and say, okay, these are from topic 1 all the way through topic 5. These are the most important lessons as we look at all of the topics. So if we can only pick out certain activities or certain concepts, where would we target our attention? So that's one list. That should be a helpful guide. The second thing that we've done is to say, okay, if you even have less time than that, what are the 4 most important lessons and concepts that we would want you to focus your energy and time on? And those are the ones that have the stars next to them. So you will receive a copy of this training or a link to this training. And so you'll be able to print out this table here and just stick that right in the front of your Unstuck binder, your Unstuck notebook, and use that as a guide as you're kind of mapping out what time you do have available from here to the end of the school year. Any questions about that list? All right. So the second key to what is the least we can do to get the most bang for our buck here is the most easy to use, fastest, and low cost option we've got. And that is to use the language. Make this language a part of your everyday. Just by hearing this language, the students are going to benefit and build up a skill set related to those scripts. The neat thing about the scripts is we can use them when we live aloud ourselves, and we narrate our own experiences and show children how we are internalizing those scripts and using those to help us through our day. We can also use them as we support students through their school day as well. So if we go to the next slide, this is a really neat visual. Once you get these slides, if you're going to print out 2 things, I would say print out the list of lessons that are most important, and then print this one out and put this front and center somewhere where you're going to, it's going to catch your eye on a daily basis, because we know if there's something that catches our eye, we're going to be more likely to use it. So these are the key scripts and the common vocabulary that is introduced throughout Unstuck and that can be used to build up that skill set for our kids. So we've got flexibility. We're going to want to highlight anytime we see an attempt at flexibility, using flexibility anytime you are having to become flexible as you move through the day, highlighting those moments. Getting unstuck, acknowledging that there are moments when we all feel that stuckness and we don't want to move past, but we know that in order to move forward in the day or in order to accomplish a goal, we're going to need to get unstuck. So that's a really a powerful concept there. Compromise. This is one of the hardest scripts that we have in the manual, and not because we don't all understand what it means, but we often use it inaccurately, because sometimes we try and say, I need you to compromise. And what we really mean is, I need you to do what I need you to do. But what compromise actually means is that we both have goals. They may be a little bit different, but in order for us to get a piece of what we want, we're going to have to compromise so we can at least get something of what we want. And it's broken down really nicely in the manual about what those compromising strategies are. Plan A, Plan B. if I say, I would say this is at the crux of Unstuck and On Target, because inherent in this idea of plan A and plan B is the idea of flexibility. We always have a goal. We always have a way that we hope it works out. But very, very often it doesn't go as planned. And so when we can acknowledge that we've got a plan B in the back of our mind to make sure that we can achieve that goal, we're putting out there this idea that we can be flexible and still get what we want. And just making it a routine, really present script in our language promotes flexibility in a very organic and natural way. Big deal, little deal, I would say is the second most inappropriately used script that we have. And it's that acknowledgement that there are sometimes things that are a big deal. There are some things that are just a little deal. Our goal here is to not assign an emotional reaction to our students. It's not to say, hey, your pencil broke. That's actually not a big deal. It's to say, I can see this feels like a really big deal. I think I have an idea to help make it a little deal, or what can we do to make it a little deal? So we're acknowledging whatever the emotional experience is of our students, and we're backing it up to say, hey, we can solve this problem really fast. Let's make it a little deal. And then the final one is, I think, the creme de la creme of the Unstuck and On Target, and it embodies every single executive function strategy possible, is goal, why, plan, do, check. And what's really neat about this structure, if you go, and it's one of the highlighted lessons, once you go through this structure and students start to understand what it means to set a goal, to understand that the why is really what's in it, what makes this motivating to accomplish this goal, what is my step-by-step plan to accomplish that goal, and then how am I going to reflect on it to see if my plan worked, or in fact, I need a plan B. Once you've moved through that series of steps with the students, you can embed this structure in any academic lesson, in any priming or planning that you're doing with a student, and it's promoting those executive function skills within this really structured format. So I think the portability of goal, why, plan, do, check is cannot be understated. And again, just familiarizing yourselves with these scripts and embedding them into all that you do is the fastest and the easiest way to promote the Unstuck and On Target skills. So with that, Monica, I'll turn it over to you.
So I think it's worth pausing here for just a second and asking Jen and Rachel, I mean, does this feel, when you look at these scripts, does this feel like something you would be able to do to just integrate into your language? Okay, and how do you feel about it, Jen?
Did you want to say something, Rachel?
I think I just froze. I don't know. Frozen for you. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what is so wonderful with this is that it is vocabulary that we already to some extent have been using with students. And a lot of times, it's either I'm talking about like a big deal or a little deal, or I give them three options, usually the size of like a storm. Like, is it kind of a little rain shower? Is it like kind of really pouring, or is it like crazy thunder, lightning kind of? So I think hopefully these are things that my students kind of are familiar with, but I think the language is so simple.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think, and the fact that you've highlighted like the least we can do with those scripts, that is fantabulous. So thank you.
Yeah, and for me, it's super helpful, all of it. The part that's really important for me is that the classroom teachers are doing it as well, because
Yes.
I can go in as the counselor and do these lessons, but if the teachers aren't going to continue. So unfortunately, yesterday there was a sub in one of the classrooms, which I wasn't expecting, but in the other class, the teacher was there, and both of the 5th grade teachers are really on board with it. And she participated right along in the lesson. We played the game. She did all of it. So that's going to be the thing that I want to talk with the teachers about and try to encourage is, are you using the language? How's it going? And trying to encourage that.
I think that you're spot on that. And it's why hearing that you're going to run it as whole group, that is exciting in a lot of ways because you do have that natural carryover to the classroom team, especially if they can be there and participate with you, because that is how, you start to embed these concepts is when it's used across settings. So I think that that's fantastic. And another piece, as you do talk to classroom teams about it, we've had a lot of success just asking teachers to embed these concepts and these skills in their already ongoing classroom reinforcement systems. So if they're, reinforcing kids for following directions or completing tasks, go ahead and add flexibility, or, choosing a plan B to that reinforcement system. It's kind of a natural way to promote those skills as well.
And, it's also just as a remander, each lesson has a teacher handout that you can give to teachers to remind them what the vocabulary is. We started, when we first started Unstuck, we created these magnets to distribute to all of our teachers at Ivy Mount. And it's just what you have up here on the screen right now. And one day I looked around and I found the magnet was up over the speaker in the ceiling. And I was like, oh, it must be because they're just looking for unstuck inspiration, right? Because that's what they're looking. They were muting the speaker. But the idea is just keeping this around you whenever you can. So printing out a copy of this slide and handing it to the classroom teacher, just stick somewhere to remind them to use the words is very powerful. So I think we have a bunch of scenarios like in the next slide where one of the things is just, you kind of drunk the Kool-Aid when you find yourself saying, when you're having a difficult moment, I need a plan B, right? When you're telling yourself you need a plan B, right? And what we want to be just doing is, this is an example of a situation where the teacher is saying stuck, right? Not disobedient, not right, but stuck. And then we have a language that we use with stuck, right? And it's non-judgmental. You look stuck. Can we make a plan B? Now, the advantage if they're doing some of the lessons is that these are not bad words. These are things that happen. Everybody gets stuck. Everybody needs a plan B. And the difference is that if they're a little neurodivergent in some way, right, they need more explicit teaching to some of these lessons, and they're going to need more repetitions. But it's eventually going to stick in this way. And it also has the power, and this is how we like to help teachers really think about this, is that it has the power of helping teachers change the way they're thinking about the situation, so that it makes them more able to respond rather than, we're all so darn tired right now, right? And it just, if we go into this kind of combative mode with kids, which is really easy to do right now because we're tired, we just make things worse. And we all know it. And we go home at the end of the day and we're like, wait, we wanted to be teachers, not police officers, right? And this can help them that way too. It helps them be more flexible and it helps you be more flexible. So I think just even using it on yourself can be powerful. So the least you can do is that. Another example that we have of sort of the least you can do, go ahead, Gary, is, really just thinking about what's the plan B? Oh, you need the plan B. Can I just write it down for them, right, in plan B and just tell them, right? So here maybe is the plan B for you writing this paragraph, right? And then the next slide, I think, another, let's just go to the next one, is the next one that I think what's important is that as we integrate this language, this is actually the idea too, that you just practice, integrate things into routines. So to the extent that, I know that our school, in Montgomery County, you have to write students will be able to, SWABAT gets put on the board for every lesson, right? And it's the objective. So we just change it to goal. Right? This is the goal. And then we wrote what the plan was. Now, what was really interesting is we knew we were making progress when the kids started saying, but why are we doing this? right? Because they were getting this algorithm of goal, why, plan, do, check, right? And what it is it is literally the algorithm for problem solving. So when you get into deep water, you're not going to have to think hard. I used to use this in a staffing, right? When we be talking about a student and I'd be saying, you know, we're in a really tricky situation for this, and people would be complaining and he's always doing this and he's always doing that. And I'd say, let's pause. What's our goal here, right? Why do we have that goal? Great. What's the plan we need to get to achieve that goal? So it becomes an organizing force. I think in complicated times, I need things simpler. And so if I can just have all the words I need to use in one place to solve pretty much any, pretty much any problem, that's great. And Rachel, that's exactly, it's the SWABA, learning target. So in that, I would just encourage your teacher to just say goal, right? And kids don't fully appreciate, but they've got their goals everywhere and they always have goals. So the least you can do also is narrate for the students your life and their life. Wow, you were really flexible there. I saw that, you know, your plan was to use the blue pencil and Peter took it and you're using the green one, right? That's a great plan B. Now you don't have to stick all the scripts in one sentence, but I will warn you that at the beginning, there is a sore temptation to do that. But that's all right. It'll start becoming more natural. All right. And then we thought it might be fun for you to see a video of a teacher who actually, what is really cool about this teacher is this is a DCPS classroom. And what's really wonderful is he had some students who were going to a separate Unstuck group. He decided to have those students help lead 4 lessons from Unstuck to the rest of the class. So they became the experts, which is really cool for kids that are being pulled out for an intervention, but that made them the experts on something. And then he was just, he's kind of a natural, he's a magnificent teacher, but you can see that what he does here is he actually integrates it. So the situation is that, you know, second grade kids notice everything. And for his morning meeting, he always had a flip chart and he ran out of paper and there was no flip chart. So he had taped like 5 pieces of paper to the, to do the morning note. So here we go with Maurice, with Mr. Tome.
Paper from last week. It was the last one.
Why didn't you just write on the...
My plan A was to use the next sheet, and then it wasn't there. Then I had to change it, and I went to go get a pad, and the other pad I had in there that was new, it was upside down, and all the paper was rippled, and the pad was ruined. So then my plan B didn't work. So then I needed a plan C, so I put it back up, and I just taped up the paper.
All right. So, and did you hear the kid in that video say plan C?
I'm not
right. So that's what's so lovely is that the kids start getting it, right? And it's just natural. He had a bad morning and he actually ends that. Was that a big deal or a little deal? Right? All right. Next. So our next idea is something Lynn has already mentioned, like what's the least you can do? Just integrate it into anything that you have that's existing. So if you've got a kid on a point chart, on a point system, some kids that are a little kind of more, you're struggling and you're trying to motivate them to stay on target, see if there's an Unstuck script you can do. You can put on there. That can really do it. Do you have any other thoughts about where you might want to integrate it?
The two classes I'm thinking of, like I said, are AAP classes. Those teachers already have a ticket system in place, and then the kids turn in their tickets at the end of the week to get prizes or lunches or things like that. So I envision that would be especially for quite a few of these students that are able to overcome. One of the classes we do have a student with Asperger's. So for him, every little acknowledgement and reward when he either tries something different or, lets something go, So I think that I would like to think that should be an easy piece to just add in with what they're doing.
Right. So just catch them being flexible.
Yeah.
I think one of my greatest moments in education was a child who was really stuck, really stuck and didn't want to go outside. And finally, they kind of like, it took like 3 teachers to cajole him. They get him outside and they were like cheering. And then he had not wanted to get on the swings for some reason, but that was the only thing left. And he got on the swings. And from 4 different directions of the playground, teachers were like, "You're so flexible," right? And it was like he had a party thrown for him spontaneously, all using the same word. And he just glowed. And he walked back into the building going, "I'm so flexible. I'm so," right? And this is a kid that had been so stuck, you know, we had not been able to get him out of the building. So I think there's just a lot of, that's exactly how, if you could just use that as the highest praise you can give, it can be very powerful.
Absolutely. I was going to add too, sometimes for our kids that end up resisting this type of instruction, you know, for a lot of our kids, it's the hardest thing for them to work at. So they resist it for that reason. For other kids, they find it hard to talk about these things. Embedding it into the classroom reinforcement system is that basic motivation. It kind of helps turn the corner from something that's so painful and aversive to, okay, well, I can deal because it's a means to an end or to this reinforcement. So if you've got that resistant kiddo, this is kind of your first line defense, is really layer it into that system.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what else is the least you can do.
So what's awesome again about the Unstuck concepts, as you guys have pointed out, is that a lot of these scripts and language is stuff that you're already using in your practices, in your therapy sessions, in your time with kids. It's just shifting it a little bit, tweaking it, making sure that it's being embedded in these different ways. But there are all these other ways of integrating these concepts too. The movies that we can access easily on YouTube, the books that teachers are using in class or you're using to support a social learning concept, all of these scripts can be embedded and identified, how characters are reacting, how how people are responding emotionally can be embedded in those other things that you're doing as well. So if we hop to this next slide here. So we actually have a large collection of some of those ways that you can tap into the books and movies. But this is just that concept of making it a cross-curricular approach. And again, when you're doing it within the context of the classroom, that's going to help the teachers think about it from that broader context as well. So read alouds are really easy places. The playground is ripe for all of these challenges to exist. And again, as I evangelize about goal, why, plan, do, check, a goal, why, plan, do, check is the best and most efficient way of organizing and supporting a kiddo who's having trouble with the interactions on a playground. Establishing, well, what's my goal? All right, well, what are my options? What are my plans that I could execute on to get to that goal? Science class, super easy to integrate that goal, why, plan, do, check again. And then group work. There's a lot of executive function skills that are at play in those dynamics.
You know, I want to actually reflect on one thing that you just said, Lynn, that I thought of, is that the idea of thinking about the goal is really important, because we talk about it in playground and kids will often say things like their goal is to play on the swings, right? Or their goal is to be with Eddie, right? But you may want to help them understand that they may have a couple of goals. They may want to play with Eddie. That's one of their goals. But recess is usually an important time for kids. It may be that they want to get some of their energy out, that they may want to have fun, right? That, and not think about, school. I mean, there's a lot of different goals they may have, and helping a kid realize that they have these goals and that they can make plans to reach different goals, so that maybe if Eddie isn't available, it's not the end of the world. right? Maybe if the swings aren't available, we can have a plan B there is another goal that you also had that we need to think about too, right? So we don't have to sacrifice everything on the altar of the one goal. I'm sorry. So sorry about that, Lynn, but I always think about that when we're thinking about playgrounds. And I think a little bit, Lynn. Okay, yeah, you're on.
So our next slide, Gary. So what this next collection of slides are just to highlight some of the different ways that we've embedded books and YouTube videos to target some of these skills. So what we have for you is a list of these links. And what's so nice now is that when you go on YouTube and you type in the name of a book, there is almost always a read aloud that's been done with that book. So you don't have to physically own the copies of the book anymore. But we've created a list of ways that you can use these different tools to support the lessons that you're doing. And what I think is also nice, it allows you, so if you've taught a lesson and you feel like the students, haven't quite mastered the skill or it hasn't sunk in the way that you would like it to, this also offers a way of following up on that skill and reviewing the concepts again in a slightly different way. So it's kind of that ability to cycle back and reteach.
And Jen, I'm thinking about you dealing with fifth graders right now. So Elephant and Piggy is not going to fly with fifth graders, right? But, I can imagine, I always just, once I started thinking this way, is that really the arc of all literature is I had a plan, it didn't work out, I made a plan B, either it worked or it didn't, right? Depends if you're happily ever after or tragedy. But, and so Harry Potter, right? Who makes more plans than Harry Potter, right? It really almost anything they're reading can apply to this. The American Revolution, right? Plan A didn't work so well, right? So we went to plan B, it was a pretty bad winter they had over in Philadelphia. So they had to make a plan to survive that. What was their plan C, right? We can always be thinking about, applying this to anything. And then in terms of every TV show they watch, all sorts of clips are available. And after this sequence of slides, Gary, if you go forward. Here are some existing resources that we've actually put on the Unstuck on Target website. So the least you can do, you're having a really bad day, Rachel or Jen, you like really can't do it anymore. We've actually created Nearpod lessons, right? And you do have to do some teaching, but at least the videos are in there. They're already embedded for you. And they actually ask the question. They pause at the right moment and they ask an unstuck question. I have to tell you, I have never seen a Pink Panther cartoon from the 70s. And I'm now using it with my high school Unstuck group. And they beg me to start group every week with a Pink Panther bit cartoon. And the rule is we'll start it, but at the end, everybody has to make an unstuck comment, right? They never have any trouble. There's always a plan B. There's always somebody, the poor detective, he's always stuck, right? So you just get to have fun and then you get to say you did unstuck, right? And we really encourage you to use as much as possible anything that is going to make it easier for you.
And get the buy-in from students too. So I think that's the other
Right.
neat thing about it is that these resources are just another way of presenting the activity or the concepts. I also want to point out the website down here, the fillable PDFs for Unstuck. This is where, so as you're going through the manual and you get to a game board and you see the game cards, and they're all in black and white. This is the website you go to pull up the game cards in color. This is where you go to get, if you're projecting to the front of the class and instead of, scanning in the worksheet and presenting that and writing on top, these are fillable PDFs that you can do it right there with the students. So it's when you click on that, it will bring you to a Dropbox link, and then you can find all of those resources right there. Even the game boards. So those couple of classes that I have running it as a whole class these days, what they're doing with the game boards is they have a document camera, and so they just set the game board under the document camera, and then they play the game as a whole class. So just lots of different ways that you could utilize those resources, but it's super easy because it's there for you and you just print it out versus having to run to the copier or worry about it not translating because it's not in color. All right, our next slide. So this is just that list of videos and books that we, just a quick and dirty list to give you some easy resources to reteach or extend upon a lesson or change it up for engagement purposes for the kiddos. If you don't have time to plan for Unstuck and Untarget to pull up, the lightning round and to prep the materials, you can create that on the fly goal, why, plan, do, check with, which is, you and the kids sit down and say, all right, our goal today is to learn how to compromise. Why would anybody want to compromise? And brainstorm that together and then put that step-by-step plan up there with the kiddos. So, if the opportunity for that advanced planning doesn't present itself, these are ways you can do that. And like I said, that the goal, why, plan, do, check is the most portable of our strategies. You've got a kiddo who's had a difficult moment and you want to debrief and plan for, what we would do differently next time, or somebody who's, stuck and needs help moving forward with something, you grab that Post-it note, that scrap piece of paper and create that goal, why, plan, do, check on the fly. And you're tapping into every one of those executive function skills. Just another example there. And this is just a review of the things that we've highlighted today as easy ways to make sure that those concepts are happening, or those skills are being addressed and taught and reinforced all the time. So our language, our reinforcement systems, that cross-curricular approach, it's all right there for you. Any questions from all that we've discussed, or problems that you foresee happening that you'd want to tackle or problem solve?
I have a question about, and I think I had emailed Jessica about this. You said that there's a teacher handout for each lesson, but I really like the teachers. I would like them to be even more, not co-teaching because they don't have the time to do that, but really be a part of the lesson. Yeah. And so I would almost like to give them the lesson before I come, in the hopes that they might have a few minutes to read it over. And so they're a little more prepared, and then they can look back on it after to try to keep it going. But all these other resources that you've provided are incredible. And so maybe just asking them to pick something from the resource list to do in between lessons would help them. So, and I wish the book was in a wire-bound format instead of just a regular, because I just like that better, because then I can fold it open. I have other things that I, fold it. So maybe that's something in the future that you would consider. Yes. I don't know.
We will pass along that feedback to our publisher.
Yeah. It just makes it easier.
Have we begged?
Oh,
agree. It's a much more expensive,
I'm sure,
format to publish in, and so really that's the limitation.
Yeah, and it makes for bulkier shipping. Apparently, we had to learn a lot of details. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a version of Unstuck. This is the new one, but I actually ripped one of my copies out of it, three-hole punched it, and put it in a folder before I had a PDF.
Yeah.
So just saying, feel free to eviscerate it.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, go on.
Jennifer, just to go along with that question or that comment that you made, the other way that I have found helpful to engage the classroom staff who might not be leading the instruction is to, lead the instruction. If we're lucky enough to have classroom staff there with us, great. So they're hearing it, but then when we get to some of the activities, dividing the kids into small groups and then the teacher facilitates one of the groups. So it actually gives the opportunity for practice with the skills and engaging with the students around it. So if that's an opportunity, I
Yeah.
found that to be really beneficial. And then I also wanted to point out too, so we've got the teacher handouts that exist, but also the parent handouts. And those are great to send home on that regular basis, just so parents are seeing it. It's also another flag to the teachers to say, oh, this is going home with the kiddos. And those are also included in that Dropbox folder as a PDF.
Okay.
So you can just print those out or email them, whatever the form and fashion is that you're sending stuff home.
Good.
Sorry, Rachel, I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
no, that was my question, because I was trying to recall and I thought I had seen the parent communications, because I can envision, I have a couple of students, even with like 504s, and, you know, parents will say, what can I do to try and help with their flexibility, or being able to pull it together with executive functioning, you know, all of those things. So I think that's really a key, is that they have the list of words and that they know, and that parents are using it, because I think that would be ideal, that, you know, when something happens, especially for some of our more high flyers, to be able for anyone around them ever to talk about flexible or unstuck or plan AB, like, so yeah, I think, and for us, I'm going to have to probably work with teachers to try and make sure they are in there with me, because I think that is the only way for it to truly be most effective, like consistent. So I'm envisioning, do you guys think it would be possible to do like 2, like 15 or 20-minute chunks a week with a class of about 20 kids?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a shorter amount of time. So you'll just want to be, you know, it'll probably take a little bit of, you know, practice getting the cadence down and looking at the lessons and deciding, okay, what's the most important.
Right.
The lightning rounds, once you can get into the flow of those, it's a really kind of organizing way to get the kids going and their brains firing about the skills you want them to be thinking about. And then, you know, look at that list that we provided and can you pick from some of those activities and just say, okay, you know, for this quick period of time, what can I get done? You know, and, you know, from that list.
You know, Rachel, I just want to remind you of what Lynn started out saying, that in the implementation studies that we did about generalization, what we found is teachers were not in the room, because, as you know, often when somebody comes in, teachers run.
Yeah.
Because they have to go to the bathroom, make photocopies, do whatever they have to do.
Yeah.
And all they got were those handouts.
Okay.
And it sticks. That's the thing, is that you know, keeping it simple, it does stick.
Okay, good to know. And are you guys, only because like I said, I'm on my phone, so I'm not accessing everything, but are you guys going to be sending an email afterwards with all of these awesome links? I did get the Dropbox, and hopefully it's synced on my phone and it worked, but all these other things, I'd love to be able to just click through and get those tomorrow when I'm in work on my computer.
Yeah. Gary, remind me again, what's the process for making sure folks have them?
Yeah, I can certainly send those out.
Okay, I'm definitely in the system registered and have the account and all that stuff. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny, when I saw the email, I'm like, let me at least jump on and see. And this is really encouraging and inspiring. It's very timely, because like we start spring break tomorrow at the end of the day. We're off Friday, and then and I had hoped to try and work through some of the training. So I think it should be, I think, a good fit in another week and a half when we come back to try and really work through all of these pieces.
Perfect. Yeah, but to re-echo, you know, to echo Monica's point, no stress.
Yeah.
Just, you know, anything is going to be beneficial. And so we're so thankful to you guys for doing this. And, you know, I know your students will benefit. And for you being here on the eve of spring break, I mean, kudos.
We still have, I think we don't start spring break for like two more weeks. So we are totally feeling it at school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so kudos to you for at the end of this long road being here.
Yeah, it is weird. This is actually the first time, you guys are all somewhat local. This is the first time in Fairfax County that we aren't aligned with Easter and Passover. They just said from now on, we're going to just do it the first week in April, and our quarter ends tomorrow as well. So that was like the big
timing.
You know, it just seemed like logical in a way, but we have people who live in the surrounding counties and they're off the 11th through the 15th. It's going to be weird. We've got a couple, everything about this year is weird. So what's one more weirdness? So
right. Tapping into our flexibility in ways we never wanted to be flexible.
Oh God.
Plan, I think I'm down to like plan M right now, but
yeah. If you're only an M, actually, maybe you're not doing so bad. I mean, I ran out of letters. I'm on the Greek alphabet.
Ooh, aligning yourself with COVID, are you?
I am. That's what inspired me. You can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, that's right. Oh.
Well,
thank you for
doing this. Don't worry about our fidelity or anything like that. You do what you need to do. We're teachers. We want you to be okay.
This is fantastic though. And like I said, I think especially you highlighting, like I jotted it down. Obviously you'll be sending I took a little screenshot and I'm like, okay, these topics, these lessons. And I've been highlighting my book. I've got my little pink pen. I'm like jotting little notes to myself back and forth. So you guys really do make it easy. The fact that we can do either the black and white, the color and print. But I agree with Jennifer, spiral. I might just have to make my own spiral binder copy myself is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, and I love the idea that we get to kind of dip our foot in the pool this year and test it out a little bit. And then my wheels are already turning on, okay, so I know it's 3rd through 5th. Do I want to do it in 3rd next year? And how would that, if it becomes part of our school culture to do this, because I think we know it's so important. We've been talking about executive function forever. So what would make sense as far as a progression? And I also loved from that video, the way that the teaching some kids in a small group and empowering them to teach it to either their peers or to some younger students.
Yes.
So you could have the 5th graders going down and teaching the 3rd graders.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great
Like the kids
idea.
that really need that, the kids that tend to have the bigger behavior issues, they're the ones that need these leadership roles and stuff like that. So I don't know, the possibilities are endless, but it's no stress for this year.
Right.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, and younger kids often do look up to the older kids. So it might be almost better to have some of them talk about it. So that is one question I do have in terms of data collection. I don't know that I saw, and point me in the direction if there is pre-test or post-test, any type of either student, teacher, or parent just survey about their thinking on any of these. Does that exist? Is it out there?
Not for this study. Well, I mean, Jess.
Jess, yes.
So we're actually recruiting students still right now. So if you have any families that would be willing to participate in the research, I can send you, we have a little email template and we would love to get them on board. And then we're going to be doing a little sampling of some schools that are involved in asking their administrators' opinions and things like that. So we'll be in touch if your school is one of the ones that's randomly selected. But we would absolutely love anybody in Virginia's help getting us. We are recruiting 50 families and we're at 28 right now. So we still definitely have a ways to go.
Send me an email or I'll send you one. I know for sure I have a mom who flat out was like, what can we do to help? These are some of the things we're seeing at home and the teachers agree. And he's crazy smart, but just stuck, always stuck. But if there is any kind of pre-post, what kind of effect? I mean, I think throughout Fairfax County, everybody has heard of Unstuck and On Target, and it is definitely considered, an evidence-based program for sure. But any kind of data, that relates to our students or our population, that would be wonderful.
Are you asking for past data that we have?
No, I'm wondering if you have some type of 1-page, 10 question, 20 question, a pre-test.
Got it.
To
Okay.
evaluate how flexible or like sort of, I'm imagining like on a continuum where the student is in terms of flexibility going into it and at the end of it. So that's if that exists, but if not, I'm happy with Jessica to work with you and try and supply you some of that.
We have some tools too on the platform, the training platform, that we've used in our previous research projects. So the classroom observation tool is one that we used previously, and that's on the training platform. So I'll email you all this info. But yeah, it's definitely out there, and we would love if you would want to collect your own data too. We're always in support of that.
Yeah, keeping it simple and no stress, but for sure.
That's right.
I feel like
I was just going to flag real quick, also embedded in the curriculum at the end of each unit are little assessments that identify the specific skills of each unit, and you can reflect on them there and, decide if there's places you want to reteach or if, progress has been made.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's, wonderful.
Well, we're lucky to have you guys doing this.
We're
We
so
really
lucky.
are.
We're so thankful.
And if you
Well,
hit
thanks for
any
coming tonight.
problems, we're around the corner in your case. So email, call Jess, she'll send us to, get us in touch. We're happy to talk on a, 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening and help you problem solve. But we love doing this. So please, anything you need, we're here to help.
Thank you.
This is so cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for coming tonight.